What's up, people? One Up Punch here. So, Nights and Tight Spaces came out today, March 4th, 2025. I was gifted a copy by a friend of mine because he wanted me to do a video on it and to also stream it. But I want to give my 2 cents about the almost 2 hours of in-game play time that I had for the first session and 310 hours I played in Fights and Tight Spaces, the original game that Ground Shatter made before this one. I'm going to play on hardy difficulty, and as I'm going through this, let's go ahead and talk about some of these different characters. Right now, you could play as a brawler, the fighter, and the rogue. Everybody else is like an unlockable later on from like the wizard and sorceress, another archer or ranger, and then some other characters. I can't really say all of them, and I kind of want to keep some of the things from like being spilled out. I don't want to spoil you guys too much, but I'm going to stick with the rogue for now. The rogue has poison, jab, dodge, step, shift, and a lot of the cards that you would see from Fights Tight Spaces, they're just different types of like looks rather than what it would be like for fights, to where it shows like 540 kick, or it does like palm strike or snap strike, or even like head smash. In short, if you played Fights and Tight Spaces, you're going to remember these cards and exactly what they do. The other thing is that with every character, they have different statuses, items that they can go with. Like when you play the rogue, you get a short sword. As you progress through the story, you can unlock new equipment like a bow, an offhand. You could also get consumables that give you +4 additional damage, or you could retain block. Then you also can go and talk to these different people that have these different events. Sometimes you have to protect villagers from being attacked by bandits. Other times you do side quests. But mainly when you start off the game, you have to complete the prologue. The prologue is the tutorial of the game before you actually get into the rest of the game and start playing it. The problem with completing the prologue is that you can't use any other party members until the tutorial is complete. Once it's done and you beat the boss, the first boss, then you can go and get all the other party members to join you, like different fighters and brawlers and so on, and then you can continue on through the game as it expands, and you fight harder enemies, heavy units, witches, and even tricksters that can basically shoot magic at you and do push. But as Fights and Tight Spaces, I want to talk about this a little bit. When it comes down to the icons themselves and the UI, it's kind of the same thing from Fights, to where above you have momentum, you have combo, and you have turn. And then how many ever turns go past, the events will be up there on the left-hand side. Defeat 4 enemies or complete the fight within 1 turn. If you can't complete the fight with 1 turn, you lose some specific types of rewards, whether it be coin, whether it be a new card, an upgrade, or maybe even something else. But it's the same thing from Fights, just a different type of setting, and not just fighting with 1 character, but fighting with 3 characters in a party. The way that the party would work when it comes down to the cards is that you would have more momentum. I think it would go from 3 to 4 or even 5 if you had a full party, and all the cards would be in one hand. Almost similar to what Hellcard had, except Hellcard had their own separate hands. You'd have like 1, 2, and 3, like 1 on the left, 1 on the right, 1 in the middle. This is all together. And the only way to tell which cards actually work is the ones where you go and highlight them. Sometimes they'll be actually down in your hand, like you can't pick on them if you are using the wrong character. But if you use the right character, like say for example my rogue, once he has a bow and I try to use like unrelenting arrows, then that will pop up in my hand and I could use it. If it's somebody that can't use a specific skill or card, it'll stay in the hand a little bit lower than the other cards, like maybe if I'm using jab or poison strike or heavy kick, or even like maybe something else like long strike. Those are generally able to be used by all the different characters. And once you're using them in the party, all you need to do is to select the character, and then that character would be able to use whatever cards you have in your hand, including their own signature skills. But as you've seen from the tavern, you're able to recruit characters, but because I'm playing the prologue, it won't allow you to. You could heal your character for about 8 HP, and it costs you about 20 gold, which just seems about right for Ground Shatter, because Fights and Tight Spaces, you had, I think it was like 40 money, and it only healed you for like 14, maybe a little bit less. And you could also heal your entire party. But once again, when the prologue's over, you can play all the different new characters that you can unlock later on through the game. This is the first boss that you play. And when you beat him, the prologue is over, and then it continues on with the story. He's kind of a brawler, I think, but I was too busy throat punching the hell out of him, so he couldn't really do very much. And then I eventually beat him with heavy strike and throat punch. And then, of course, that's when the actual quest is over. Prologue is done. And then that's when the game starts to open up even more. Some other things I forgot to mention when it came down to the tavern is that they have some other places that you can upgrade cards and buy them, like at the blacksmith. You can go to a trade goods place to get potions, equipment, and some other things. And once again, the only character I was able to actually recruit were just different fighters. They have their own different types of currency or how much they actually get hired for. That is because the cards they have in their deck might not be that great in comparison to others. I think the ones that are like a little bit higher than the ones that are 75 have like better cards that either have higher damages or maybe do better combo skills. I'm not really entirely sure on that one. And a lot of them are still level 1 fighters. That's probably going to be for all classes as you progress through the story. The other thing is that when you can go up to the top that says View Party and View Deck, View Party will allow you to go to your character's screen and you can equip them with different items that you can grab. For example, I went from a short sword to a bone bow and arrow for my rogue, and then it had like an offhand, which I think was like poison or something when I shoot people with it. And then they talk about with the new party that if you have a full party or 2 people inside your party, they have support attacks. The way that this works is that if you're adjutant to the enemy when you attack them, your fighter and your rogue will attack simultaneously. So say, for example, my rogue is right next to the trickster or mage or brawler that's right next to my fighter. If I were to attack him with my archer or Hugo Port over next to him, he would attack automatically, doing a support attack. And this is going to be very easy to deal with heavy units, higher health units, and even bosses in the game, as opposed to fight type spaces where it's just one unit and you're fighting everybody by yourself. So it's going to be a lot easier to deal with these tougher units. Then you have some of the other different ones that are like grapplers, heavy units that can't be pushed or knocked down, some other ones that do full-blown charges from one map to the other, so on and so forth. Just like how it was in Fight Night Spaces. You had the Eye Complete Eye, where it was a lot of hatchet runners and the assassins, and they would do crazy things from being able to look at you to follow you and then do bleed damage. Or the Jade Staff, where it's a lot of the ninjas that were like Mystic Ninja, the normal, or even like the ones that can do the decoy, and they can throw throwing stars at you, kick you from 3 tiles away, or knock you back with their mysticism. There's different things here too. I just don't know all the units that I fought, besides tricksters, brawlers, fighters, heavy charge units, and then the bosses. Here's the thing I want people to know when it comes down to watching this video, is that I don't want to show you everything that I've seen in this game so far, or all the stuff that's in Nights and Tight Spaces. The main reason why is because this game is actually cheaper than Fights. Fights, I think, was $24.99. This is actually $20 full asking price, but they have a sale, which I think is $17.99. And honestly, for my almost 2 hours of gameplay, am I going to have another couple hundred hours of gameplay time on this game? Probably. I mean, with the side quests and the different events when it comes down to being a roguelike, it's got a lot of stuff to do. The equipment makes it even better because your characters can be more powerful. You could also do different setup and combos. You have the same premise as getting combo cards like Palm Strike. Though I'm unsure if they have the other ones like 540 Kick or they have like Choke Slam, which I think costs like 8 combo. But I'm going to have to unlock them as you progress through the story, because when you're done with the run, let's say you get destroyed by a witch shooting a fireball at you, you get card unlocks, and that will be unlocked in the compendium and the start of the game in the main menu, and you could actually look at what you have unlocked. For personally me, after 310 hours in Fights, I have all the cards unlocked, and all I kept doing was doing dailies because it was the new stuff to do. They're probably going to have new, like, different modifiers. Like, for example, I have 3 block every turn. Maybe I might be able to have magic damage that increases later on, or so on and so forth. As Fights Type Spaces was, to where you can go on there and you get block retention, getting increased momentum, or having higher combos that never go down to a specific threshold. There's probably different ones in here too that I haven't unlocked. Like I said, I've only put about almost 2 hours of in-game playtime in my first session, and after this video, I'm definitely going to go back and play more of it. Another thing I forgot to talk about is the people that are currently yellow. These would be considered informants in fights in tight spaces. In nights in tight spaces, they're like villagers and people you have to protect. Now, if they do perish, that doesn't mean that the run is over. It just means you won't get your reward if you protect 2 hostages like I did earlier. One guy was there, and then he got knocked into oblivion, so I wasn't able to get my reward, but I was able to save the one person with 6 health. In fights, if you actually played on brutal difficulty, and one of these characters would be actually destroyed, then the run would be over, because you have to protect them. If you don't, then you're screwed. But I don't know if that's the actual case in nights in tight spaces. The other thing I like about nights, besides the soundtrack, is the different places you fight in. In fights, you had like small areas such as a bathroom, a hallway, a train, or even on top of like a skyscraper. This is like inside of a canal, inside of an outhouse, over by a bar. And the other thing I completely forgot about was that if you go and highlight the character, it will show you what they're going to do to you. I did not do that, and I lost one of my fighters to a guy that had charge, or he had 2 tile strikes, and the guy with the giant greatsword also has counter. That's another thing people should have to worry about. In terms of what I think of Knights and is it worth the money, absolutely. Granted, I was given a copy by a friend of mine, but hey, you know what? I was going to buy the game anyway after putting 10 hours into the demo, and I needed something new that wasn't fights. Don't get me wrong, I like fights in tight spaces, even after 300 plus hours. But now that Nights in Tight Spaces is currently out and it's all the new hotness from Ground Shatter, I'm absolutely going to be streaming this, playing it offline and online, simply because I love these types of games. Like I said, when I first started streaming on Twitch, I started in card games instead of playing Elite Dangerous or Hunt Showdown or anything else. And that was Infinity Wars a long time ago. By the way, if you didn't see that, my guy shot an arrow up in the air, grabbed it with his hand, and stabbed the person with it, which is also badass. But anyway, I've been One Nut Punch, and this has been the Nights in Tight Spaces video. Thanks for watching as per usual, and I'll see everybody tomorrow for SCP 5K when .16 comes out. Thanks for watching. I'll see you later in the next one.